To break it all down for us, Cassie Smedile, Executive Director for America Rising, former RNC Chair spokesperson. Cassie, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Thank you. All right, let's get right to it. Recent presidents, they've opted not to deliver a State of the Union address during their first year since they gave that inauguration address in January. But what do you expect to hear from President Biden tomorrow night?
I expect him to lower expectations for himself, just as we've heard him do from day one of his administration. He's going to likely tout that he's been there doing everything for everyone, but really what he's just doing is continuing what the Trump administration had already started before he got into office. We're seeing that on the vaccine numbers, of course. What I don't expect to hear from President Biden is him to talk about the crisis at the border. I don't expect him to talk about how he's going to raise our taxes and take more of our hard-earned money to pay for his trillions of dollars in new spending that he is expected to tout. And I would make one note about that new spending. You know, over the last year, as our country was suffering this global pandemic, there was an exception made for this incredible amount of spending because it was made in the name of helping the American people stay on their feet or get back on their feet. Now, Joe Biden is talking about trillions of dollars of spending nearly every time we hear from him, which, as you noted, is not that often, all in an effort to appease his far left base. This isn't about the American people. This isn't about unity. This isn't about making our country stronger. This is about Joe Biden trying to stay out of trouble with his base.
Senators are in Washington this week. The House not in session. With most lawmakers, they're working remotely here. Congressional leadership, as we heard from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're the ones who are extending the invitations. Anyone without it's got to leave. Marjorie Taylor Greene had said she was not invited, but she would have attended had she received an invite. Cassie, who do you think will be in the room, and what do you think the response will be as they listen to the president speak?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's very interesting that the recommendation was to do this pared back invite list, despite that the vast majority of members of Congress are vaccinated, and there was a way to have them gather safely because the CDC says you can gather with other people who are vaccinated. So I'm not understanding why Congress is not included in that. I think what you're seeing in terms of people who have been invited or who will go are folks that are going to help President Biden keep this speech nice and boring. I don't think he wants anybody to pay attention to him. I don't think he wants to make any news with this because when he's making news, it's usually bad news for him. So I think they're really trying, the Biden administration really wants to keep this a small affair to try and limit the amount of harm that President Biden can do to himself.
If we recall, the last time then President Trump gave a State of the Union address, Speaker Pelosi, over his shoulder, ripped up the address very publicly after it wrapped up. Do you think we see any sort of response like that during this address?
Yeah, of course, she's going to be very partisan, both in her response to President Trump's speech. Of course, that speech, which included him heralding American heroes, heralding the great work of now what we know as Operation Warp Speed and the vaccines, the medical miracle of getting our country back in order. And she ripped up that speech. And what we expect to see from her this week is probably a pressed-on smile. She's going to support President Biden at every turn because she's a partisan at every turn. And that is her job, to be a partisan, to not be there as an impartial observer of this speech.
Finally for you, Cassie, we know Senator Tim Scott's going to deliver the GOP's response to this address, joint of Congress here. What are you looking forward to hearing from Senator Scott?
Yes, a fantastic choice to have him be the response because he's such a wonderful, not just emerging leader in the Republican Party, but emerging leader in our country. And I think he's a unifying voice, someone that people really respect and enjoy hearing from. I remember when he gave his remarks at the GOP convention last summer, people were all over texting my phone who aren't really political people saying, who's that guy? I want to know more about him. So I think a fantastic choice. He's going to talk about the way forward through opportunity, through personal responsibility, not through more government, not through more control over our lives, but through us being able to be empowered to control our lives. And I'm really looking forward to those comments. And I think it's going to be a spectacular night for Tim Scott. And I hope that so many Americans who may otherwise tune out President Biden's speech will really tune in to Senator Tim Scott.
All right. We will be watching as we hear from both the president and Senator Tim Scott on Wednesday night. That's Cassie Smedile joining us here on National Report with a bit of a preview there. Cassie, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, there was a lot of outrage